What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video. And today it is going to be day two, rounds 2 and 3 of this mock draft with trades. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Go check out round number 1. We're going to do a quick recap in just a second. But of course, do all of that beautiful YouTube stuff like being able to like. And then, of course, comment all your thoughts because even if it's negative thoughts, feel free. If it's constructive, that's way better because, hey, being able to coach me up on your favorite team, I'm more than open to it. I'm a fan of 32, y'all a fan of 1, and of course, sometimes I get hit with a blind spot here and there. Always nice to be able to make better content for y'all because it makes it better for me too. So let's jump right into this. Let's have a good time. Quick little recap of the trades that went down. We had a minute trade up right here with the Giants. Actually, we saw Evan Neal get traded in that spot as well to probably play interior offensive line. It was a minute addition in value for a team that wanted to get rid of somebody who is just not trying very hard for a team like the Bears, who could definitely always use extra offensive line talent. But yeah, already explained myself plenty of times. Bears fans, like, we're going to get past that. Had a small trade up right here with the Bills and the Cardinals. Just had to be able to go grab an offensive lineman right there. Small trade up here with the Steelers as well for Cooper DeJean. And then the Bears also traded up with the pick that they acquired from the Giants with the Seahawks in order to grab Dallas Turner. Had one small move up here as well with Washington to grab Braylon Trice, but we'll continue referencing it as time goes on. There are two basic assumptions. You see that the number 1 player is still on the board. That's Caleb Williams. He is not. He's returning to school in this scenario. Shadur Sanders also returning to school in this scenario. And you know what? Let's add one to the list. Quinn Ewers returning to school in this scenario. Why am I doing that? I don't know. I'm making things hard on myself, but it is a very realistic possibility. Therefore, it is always entertaining to be able to exercise those options. So let's continue on here. This is a trades mock draft. This is all live. Let's go and let's have some fun. Pick number 33 with the Cardinals. We are not going to be trading out of this spot. We are going to be addressing that defensive interior because they do need help. And we're going to go after Tavondre Sweat, 360 pounds of pure domination. Your defensive interior is complete booty cheeks. This is a great way to be able to grab a player who can both assist instantly in the run game because he's honestly, well, just size alone, you are going to be plugging up plenty of holes. Pause. But, he also has really good length. Pause again. And he has really good pass rushing ability. I'm a big fan of what Tavondre Sweat brings just as an overall holistic product. And on a defensive interior that doesn't need more of a scheme specific guy, they kind of just need somebody to work. This is going to be the perfect guy to slot in there. At pick number 34 for the Dolphins, I'm actually going to go after offensive line at this pick. We could go Tyler Guyton for sure, but I'd rather go after a more consistent product in Jordan Morgan to eventually replace Terran Armstead. He hasn't been relatively healthy over his career, especially recently. And, Jordan Morgan is going to be more of that day one type of dude. He's been performing very well even this past week versus UCLA, or might have been a week and a half ago. Slipping my mind at the moment. But Jordan Morgan played really well even versus UCLA, and like that's very difficult to do. Only the best tackles perform well against those 3 edge rushers that they have there down in LA. So, Jordan Morgan definitely proved it. Pick number 35 for the Chiefs. We had a trade back with the Washington Commanders. Now we are here. And, looking at it, Tavondre Sweat would have been a nice addition for this squad. There are some really good players that have still fallen down the board. I don't think offensive line's out of the realm of possibility here for tackle, like because of the fact that, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the tackles on your squad. However, I do think that based on the fact that y'all could definitely use a wide receiver, especially somebody who has a physical profile like Jalen Polk or AD Mitchell, it's probably worth to go after that. You could go after a gadget player with the size of Xavier Worthy or Troy Franklin. Those would all be perfectly acceptable options. Troy Franklin normally would be where I'd go, but I want to give AD Mitchell some credit. He's been on a tear and is well deserving of this selection. He he's just been performing like a true wide receiver one, and this squad could definitely use it. He's very athletic. He's still working on the nuances of the game, and primarily it's been injuries that have not allowed him to progress at the exponential rate that he's starting to show. And it's good to see that when he's healthy, he's getting better and better and better. And he's been doing well even without Quinn Ewers in. So that's a big plus. At pick number 36, this was a trade back with the Chicago Bears. So this is the Giants pick that was traded up for Drake May. And now it's, passed down the line once again to the Seahawks. So this is, I don't know why edge is listed as a primary need on this squad. With Boye Mafe there, Derek Hall. I'm not really too concerned about that. I do think a linebacker is not out of order here. Junior Colson is someone who I absolutely adore. And I do think it is a smart idea for this franchise to be able to continue arming in that way. Again, the quarterback's the smart thing to do. Again, Caleb Williams, Shadur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, not going to be included in this mock draft because it's very realistic that 2, if not 3 of those guys all return. Looking at it, Joe Milton's the next best guy. And even my love for Joe Milton has its limits. And maybe this is where, because it's such a thin QB class, it's worth taking a shot. This team's kind of pretty much preloaded for success. And having a guy who could throw a 90-yard deep bomb probably should, be a massive addition. You're not going to get much worse than Geno Smith after the next year of him developing. And, again, that's not a slight at Geno. I'm saying because Joe Milton is so talented, I don't think you're going to be getting much worse than the production you're getting now. So, you know what? For that reason, because this QB class thinned out exponentially, you got Jaden Daniels in here who deserves respect as well. I just think Joe Milton would probably operate the offense a little bit better than Jaden. Jaden's been too much up and down. I guess you could say the same about Joe. But for me, I've seen higher levels of consistency from Joe in his best games than I have from Jaden. Like, it's nitpicking to say the least, but you're pretty much down to those two. For me, I'm going to go with a guy who I personally like more, and that's Joe Milton. He was my QB2 coming in for a good portion of the year, but he's even lost a little bit of his biggest fans' love for him. He just hasn't progressed. He still is a very talented QB, can put it on the money. Just he lost his best target too, so we got to put up that into the equation. But this is a squad where I don't want to jinx it, almost failure proof. Like, this is a team that is so damn good. I don't think you need a center. I don't think you need a guard remotely. Like, there's almost nothing that I'm really scared about for this team in the future. It's why I gave y'all a 14-3 record. I genuinely believe in this franchise. And Joe Milton could be that guy who does unlock it. We'll see what happens there. At pick number 37 for the Patriots, we got Bo Nix in the first round. And it's going to be down to tackle, which Tyler Guyton, that could work. Karan feels a lot more like an actual Patriots pick. But, I feel like Karan with a season-ending injury, probably not going to be going in this range. Tyler Guyton could be. And you got Patrick Paul here. I'm not over the moon about Patrick Paul. Troy Fautanu, I love, but more as an interior guy. City Sal's been performing very well. Obviously, you have Cole Strange there as well, so there's no real need for that. I'm going to go Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. Pick number 38 for the Rams, we went Joe Alt in round number 1. I might go Cam Kinchens here just because the value is so good. Might go Kamari Lassiter as well. TJ Tampa, you can't go wrong with this pick. You can't. You can go an edge rusher here as well. Byron Young's been performing very, very well. You could get JT Tuimoloau to pair up with him and have the size and then the speed as well, being a nice little 1-2 punch there. And for me, I honestly really like that idea. I don't feel like this is the biggest needle mover, but you're getting really good value at a position. You're going to have essentially really talented edge rush duo that on very cheap contracts for 3 full years. That's very valuable. I do like seeing that. JT Tuimoloau to the Rams. At pick number 39 for the Packers, we ended up going after Talise Fuaga, kicking Zach Tom back to left tackle. I do think getting a run-stuffing defense interior is a solid idea. However, when you have the safeties on the board, you go after the safeties. This time I'll go Tyler Nubin because I've been going Cam Kinchens consistently. Both of them are spectacular. Pick number 40 for the Buccaneers. We went after Michael Penix in round number 1. And at this point, you could go after another edge rusher. There are some phenomenal ones on the board. Shaq Barrett's not getting any younger. And you got Princely Umanmielen that is right down the road, who's been performing unbelievably well. The bend for his size is ridiculous. He's really proven to be a very talented player. I do think you could go Troy Fautanu and grab another interior offensive lineman that way. I know that y'all are talking about centers, a potential massive need with Ryan Jensen getting up there and potentially being gone. For some reason, deep down inside, I feel like he did retire, but it's slipping my mind at the moment. Your boy just finished a B-Law exam, so it is what it is. I'm going to go Princely here. I think that's your best return on investment. You're getting the highest paid at defensive position, highest paid offensive position in back-to-back picks with very, very good value. Pick number 41, we're going Cam Kitchens here. I think that's the smartest thing you can do. It really is. The value is incredible. Your safeties are not getting any younger, and this is an investment in the future. Cam Kitchens is a potential top 32 player. He is my number 25 player on my board. I want to double check to see if Dwight McLaughlin has gone, and he has not, which this is actually a perfect spot for him to go. I wish Troy Fautanu was a better projection as a tackle, because I would take him here in a heartbeat, because this team could use him. But Javon Foster's another dude I think will be really good in this system. We might trade up for him, but for this pick, I am going to go after. I actually might take Max Melton in 3 rounds. So Shaw Smith-Wade is going to be my placeholder value for my favorite corner pound for pound in the draft, and Dwight McLaughlin out of Arkansas. He just came off of injury and then ended up balling out, so it's good to see that. Again, Caleb Williams is returning in this mock draft. That's why he's not being selected. Same thing with Shedeur Sanders. Pick number 43 with the Falcons, our first round pick, was a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. I do think Kamari Lassiter would be a pretty awesome addition to this team. However, given that there are also some big talented edge rushers, could see that as well. I am going to opt out of the edge rusher conversation right now and actually draft a very versatile defensive back. I know that, the play from the guys you have right now been pretty solid. But ultimately, when you look at the division, I feel like you need, well, also, to be fair, when we're looking at it, why do I keep wanting to say Marshawn Lattimore? The Ohio State corner that y'all have, he has been, he's up for a contract this year as well. Why am I forgetting it? It's like Denzel Burke, Marshawn Lattimore. I'm forgetting the one that's in between. But obviously it's slipping my mind at the moment. Kamari Lassiter is going to be the longer-term option here. You could also use him as safety if you need to, but you have great mentorship there with A.J. Terrell, and this is a guy who could end up being an absolute superstar. Pick number 44. So Washington, we have Braylon Trice on the roster. We have J.C. Latham on the roster. Could end up getting another tackle and developing a guy. You could take a shot on Troy Fautanu and say, hey, you can play a guard as well. To be fair, if I'm not mistaken, Chris Paul was listed to start at the start of the year. Troy Fautanu is a guy who I'm going to take. We're taking both tackles right now. If Troy Fautanu doesn't work, I don't think that going to guard is going to be a big negative, because he's going to be a massive asset, and you might as well invest in it. You might as well. There are trades in this, but the value's just been really damn good. Kalen King, if I'm not mistaken, was the first round selection for the Colts, and he does not stop me from going after another one, because again, it's what I like to do for this team. Looking at other options, I do think defensive interior with Mason Smith, pairing him up with DeForest Buckner, would be pretty damn awesome. And I think I'm going to go that route. The value's adding up at the moment. I want to go a different route than just defensive back. Pick number 46, we got Jerzon Newton in round number 1. I do know some people would be a fan of Jaden Daniels here. I'm not going to press that far just yet. I think this team has a lot of issues that we need to solve. And we could just go Josh Newton here, pair him up with Trevon Merrick. I did that, I believe, in yesterday or 2 days ago's mock draft. So for me, Josh Newton is a very talented corner. When his team sucks and allowing 40 points, he's the one bright spot. For me, that's a sign of a very talented player. And Josh Newton, he was one of my guys coming into the year. I didn't know that people thought that highly of him, but I was like, yeah, this guy's a really good corner. And that's kind of what the Raiders are going to be looking for. Consistent, solid picks, build the defense. Yes, there's going to be more needs for the offense, but you just don't need to solve everything in 1 year. I know it sucks to say that, but this franchise is not one player away from being a Super Bowl contender. I hate to say it, but it's true. So get Josh Newton, enjoy the fruits of your labor, have your defense continue to improve, and then you can drop maybe somebody into the offense, and then, oh, now you're actually able to compete. Pick number 47 for the Texans, we got Chris Jenkins, run stuffing specialist, unbelievable overall athlete out of Michigan in the first round. For me at this point, I don't really feel like there's that many holes on Houston. I do think linebacker should be something we do target. Edgerrin Cooper, he's a fun one, but I think that I like quite a few linebackers above him. Just I just think they're just better options on the board. You could go Jatavian Sanders here because I do think that's a very solid option given Dalton Schultz's success. I do think Dalton Schultz gets re-signed because he has been a very reliable target. If I want to look for somebody who can complement the receiving core they have, Jalen Polk could be a really awesome addition. I think he works well with Nico Collins. But I do think Troy Franklin offers the most unique skill set in terms of he is 187, so he has his unique frame. He's basically a deep threat. He will be in that 4-4 territory. Tank Dell's in that 4-5. So you have more size, more speed, more height. And he complements Nico Collins the best out of all the guys who are available. His only issue has been dropped so far, but it's still only 11%, and it ticked up from 3% last year. So, maybe he's just having an off year. But the fact is, he put on 10 pounds in the offseason, and he's been performing just as well as he has before. So, for me, I think he's well deserving of this selection. You don't need it, but it's weird to say this, but the Texans don't need much. I would, again, caution the linebacker route, but, I think Troy Franklin's value is incredible here. Pick number 48 for the Packers. We've already gotten Newman. We've already gotten after a offensive tackle in Fuaga, a defensive interior with a run stuffer like Dante Corleone. I feel like is really good value here. Y'all have defensive interior talent. Yes, I know. But the run stuffing ability, you need somebody besides Kenny Clark who could stuff the run. And so far, the defensive interior hasn't really proven that. Dante Corleone is that dude. He really is. I mean, you could see that he has had a drop off in terms of his stats, but this guy is just ridiculous. The question is, does he come out this year? Redshirt sophomore, you saw that right there. I don't know, but for this instance, he is. He is one of the best impact defensive interior on the board. He definitely is one of the best in the draft. The ability to move an offensive lineman is extremely underrated. A lot of times, so there's a video going around about Nesta Jade Silvera from the Raiders right now. Like, he's been creating pretty much pileups on the line of scrimmage by not letting guys to push him. The guys who make the biggest difference, though, are the ones who push the offensive lineman back. And, that's not a slight to Nesta, because I was a big fan of him coming into this based on how he played in the Senior Bowl. But, like, guys like Dante Corleone, it's very rare to find a defensive interior player that can consistently drive back the offensive lineman, and he is one of them. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does decide to return, because I think he could be easily like a first-round lock if we do a 2025 mock draft. But for the time being, we're going to enjoy the fruits of his labor in this mock draft. At pick number 49, the Chargers. We're going to see, do we have a right tackle available? No. So we went after Malik Neighbors in round number 1 to give pretty much what Darius Davis, even though, again, got that touchdown last week. Awesome. But as a pure receiver, he hasn't proven to be an elite threat. Jatavian Sanders, however, could be that Gerald Everett for the long run. And to me, that's worth taking. Kellen Moore loves his tight ends. I don't know why they haven't featured the tight ends as much, but it is what it is. At pick number 50 for the Bills, again, I'm looking at Kalen Bullock here, and it's like the value is too good to pass on. This guy is a spectacular player. Sometimes he doesn't take the best angles in the run support, but, he definitely has proven himself week after week. And, again, not having any trades so far, but the value of a lot of these players, that's the one fun thing about this class. There are a lot of very, very good players in this class. At pick number 51 for the Eagles, I do think going after someone like TJ Tampa at this point would be an excellent move. Bradbury, a lot of people have been saying you could potentially bench his ass, but I'm not going to go there. Bradbury and Slay are getting older. That's the truth. Eli Ricks has a future. He's been playing primarily slot, so got to put that out there as well. But you have Maddox, you have Ricks, you have like Goodrich, Job. Josiah Scott. Like, I don't think those guys are Super Bowl caliber corners once the older guys retire. They're on 2-year deals, and someone like TJ Tampa could be a massive addition. I do think linebacker is a move that we could totally go, but there's a significant drop off after TJ Tampa. Even on my rankings, there's a big drop off. So I'm going to go after TJ Tampa here. It's your best return on investment. He has unbelievable size at 6'2", 200. I know it's not crazy, but it's unbelievably great for a pick 51 to get a potential boundary one corner. He's been consistent. He's been reliable. Just somebody that you want to have on your roster. TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. At pick number 52, we got Nate Wiggins in round number 1. A lot of people got a little bit butthurt by the fact that I still drafted a corner. Mekhi Blackman, like him. I don't really think the rest of your legit corner core. I like Byron Murphy as well, especially if he stays healthy. But he's more of a slot to me than anything. And, now you have Nate Wiggins, you have Blackman, you have Murphy, and then you can have a Caleb Evans in there. That is more of a recipe for success. I know it hurts to say this, but I think the success has primarily come from, on the defensive side, from Flores, not necessarily from the overall play of the corners. So just got to put that out there. Defensive interior is a great way to go. Someone put it very perfectly in the comments. You got a lot of dudes who are just guys, jags, so to speak. And I'm going to go Tyleik Williams out of The Ohio State University to just add some extra beef. That's that 320-pound frame. He has unbelievable length as well. His talent is through the roof. I don't know why more people aren't talking about him as one of these guys who deserves to be in the top 2 rounds. Pick number 53 for the Cowboys. We ended up going, I believe, Graham Barton. We did in the first round. And honestly, the center role is wide open. So I think the fact that we have someone who could replace either the left tackle or center, it's a weird 2 positions to say, but it is what it is. Primarily, you're going to be fixing the center. I think that is going to be the best thing that you can do for your franchise at the moment. Other positions I would note, linebacker. I mean, at this point, it's worth it. And I think I'm going to go after Colson or Danny Stutzman. I want to remind myself of the height of stuff. I did not realize Colson was this big. We're going to go Junior Colson here. First linebacker off the board out of Michigan. I just think that having a true Mike is, you have DeMarvion Overshown coming off an ACL tear. LVE, LVE. I think that's an area where y'all have a lot of room for growth. And Junior Colson's one of the best linebackers. He is my number 1 linebacker in the class. And well-deservingly so. He's very well-rounded. He's just overall a very, very consistent player. And I would have loved him for my Steelers, but Cowboys get him instead. The Steelers, we traded up for Cooper DeJean at the beginning or at the middle of last round. At this point, positions we could target corner. I mean, again, took him, but, I would have loved for TJ Tampa to be here. I'd be intrigued with Tyleik Williams, pairing him up with Keanu Benton for the future, but we already took that too. So the past 3 picks, I think, were all very valid options for the Steelers. I know a lot of people want to replace the center role, but I don't see it yet. I don't see the value. Like, you got Jackson Powers Johnson here, and I'm glad to see him there. Christian Haynes, I absolutely adore, but he did have a pretty poor week this past week, so just not pretty poor. He had 2 pressures allowed, but he has allowed more pressure this year than he did last year already. Jackson Powers Johnson is a very valuable center. Same thing with Cedric Van Pran. I'm glad to see some of these guys starting to pop up into here. So it looks like PFF updated their board, but of course didn't put Dwight McLaughlin in. Jackson Powers Johnson is an option here. I'm not going to discount it just yet, but I mean, I'd rather, especially after we essentially saw the leg absolutely bend the wrong way for Cole Holcomb. I think it's time to get somebody to potentially replace Cole, and that really sucks to say because I really like Cole Holcomb, but Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma is going to be the pick there. I do think center is a likely option, so we'll check that out in the next round. Pick number 55 for the Browns. I believe that the right thing to do for this team, they were looking to add edge rushing talent. So I don't think it's out of the question to go after an edge rusher. Problem is, I don't see anybody who's necessarily large enough besides Xavier Thomas, and I don't think they're going to spend this pick on Xavier Thomas. Looking at the defensive interiors, you're going to essentially, I would probably take this one for the Bengals. Ruka Rorho. So you're not going to have to face him. 295 pounds of pure muscle, essentially an edge rusher defensive interior hybrid. And it's just sometimes worth taking a shot on. They have a lot of beef on the interior with Siaki Ika in that squad, but now you have somebody who has a little bit more of that pass rushing upside. Pick number 56 for the Bengals. Tight end, no longer an option, but Johnny Wilson was the pick in round number 1. So for me, I would honestly be very open to the idea of developing Karan Amajaje because he is spectacular. Again, season-ending injury sucks. I could go Patrick Paul here, and I think I'm going to blend my board with realism. I do think he goes probably in this range. He's been phenomenal statistically this year. I've not sold on him as a prospect necessarily, but I blend my board with the realism of the world to give you guys a nice little balance, but a taste of my board as well. We're going to go Patrick Paul here out of Houston. Pick number 57 for the Giants. I do think that offensive tackle is not out of the question here. Developing a guy like Blake Fisher wouldn't be a bad idea because Evan Neal's no longer on the team, but signing somebody in free agency, just between you and me, sign somebody in free agency. Wide receiver, I think, is a big one. Again, you could, of course, go after the interior of the offensive line as well because y'all do need that. But when you have someone like Jalen Polk on the board who's available, you take Jalen Polk, 6'2", 204 pounds. Just one of those sleeper guys who just popped out of nowhere and is well deserving of this pick. Pick number 58 for the Niners went after Kingsley Suamataia, swing tackle out of BYU. At this point, looking at the corners, I really like Kalen Carson. I think he could be a very good addition for the Niners. He got mossed very recently by Keon Coleman, but I feel like that's the story for a lot of corners who go up against Keon Coleman. At pick number 59 for the Dolphins, we went Jordan Morgan. Now we're going to continue going back on the offensive line with Christian Haynes, my number 11 player in the draft. Just this team needs help on both the tackle spot and the guard spot, and this guy is absolutely ridiculous as a pulling guard, and especially with the way that this team likes to move everybody around, it's going to be a very valuable asset. Pick number 60 would have been a great pick here for the Jaguars, but we went after a wide receiver in Xavier Legette in round number 1. For this selection, I do think edge is on the board for him, but I honestly want to potentially test out someone like James Williams on the squad. He's getting extremely underrated at this point. It's quite sad. Javon Bullard's super fun as well to watch. Like, there's some good dudes in this class. That's the fun part. We're at the end of the second round, and I'm still excited about the players who are here. And that was not the case last year. Jonah Ellis might be worth taking a swing on, or Chris Braswell for depth, but I'm not there yet. I'm not there. For me, I am going to opt for the safety route. And you got James Williams, who could be a very, like, at 6'5", 220 pounds, just he's someone where you can plug and play anywhere, and he'll work. Very good against tight ends as well. Like, we're seeing a lot of the times these top-tier safeties are able to handle tight ends like Kelsey very well. And when you're in the playoffs, that's probably a pretty big factor. And James Williams has the size to handle Mark Andrews. He has the size to handle Travis Kelsey and Dallas Goedert if they end up getting to the Super Bowl. So could be a very valuable addition. Pick number 61, we ended up going after, did we go Chop for the Lions? We did. So Chop Robinson pairing up with Aiden Hutchinson. Ridiculous. I think corner and defensive interior would be the two positions I'd go next besides wide receiver. Looking at the defensive interiors that are remaining, I'm not seeing it. McKinley Jackson's been pretty abysmal this year. Byron Murphy would be the next guy who I'd go after in that regard. Wide receiver, though, you still have some really good players on the board. And you could take a swing right now on Brian Thomas. I do think he's a very good wide receiver. You could go after, well, I think Brian Thomas would be the next guy who I'd go after particular for this particular system. And that's because you're getting essentially an X-build wide receiver here. He is Troy Franklin with size. I'm taking this from Broshmo because we talked about it last night. He's Troy Franklin with size a year behind. And that is well worth the number 61 pick. 6'4", 205 pounds. Just going to be an absolute weapon there. And he doesn't have to be the focal point of the offense. That's the key because he can absolutely tear defenses apart when there's some mismatches. And maybe putting him against a corner one, not going to always be the best thing. But if he goes up against a corner two, he could end up having a monster game. And a lot of times, especially with the receiving core y'all have, he's a very good complement to everything else that's in the receiving core. At pick number 62, we are going to be going, I want to go running back so badly, but this is one of the teams where Keaton Mitchell just popped off. We went a corner already. I'm looking at the defensive interior here, and with Calais Campbell performing so well on this squad just years ago, I really think Brandon Dorlus could step into a very similar role at a very similar size at 290 pounds. At pick number 63, Brandon Dorlus was on my short list of options for the Chiefs. However, we ended up, I think, going Troy Franklin. We went 80 Mitchell. Still an excellent choice, in my opinion. So we went 80 Mitchell already. I think another position we could go, you could look at linebacker based on the health of the linebackers. I'm not going to do that. We'll go back to defensive interior. We're actually going to go Byron Murphy out of Texas. He's been consistent left, right, and center, just putting up pressure. And he's been a great running mate there with Tavondre Sweat. Could be one of the steals. And you're pairing him back up with Keandre Coburn. Pretty sure Keandre's still on the team. Deep down inside, I thought I saw him go somewhere else. But we're going to pray that he's still on the same team. If he is, that's awesome. If not, RAP, but at least you go back to Texas and try to replace him. Pick number 64 for the Eagles, Leatu Latu already acquired. Have we had even a trade in the second round? I don't think we have. Well, technically, the results of trades. We have TJ Tampa and Leatu Latu. At this point, I actually might trade this pick because there is a very qualified center on the board that I think should be going. Looking at it, I think we could trade out of this spot. We're going to do it. We're going to trade out of it. You got Jonah Ellis here too, who's phenomenal. But I'm looking at the Bears, and the Bears are looking for a center. So, the Bears are going to trade up once again. And this one, it's a super short range trade. I assume this pick 132 will be pretty damn adequate. So now you have Evan Neal, Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Olu Fashanu, not to mention Darnell Wright and Jackson Powers Johnson. Now you can technically deal with them as you please. I think that we might actually see Evan Neal get dealt based on how this draft fell, but we'll check that out when the time comes. Jackson Powers Johnson to the Chicago Bears. He's very athletic. He popped onto the scene, kind of the exact opposite of Alex Forsyth last year. He's been just very dominant consistently. I think there's still nuances to the game that he needs to work on, but this young into his starting career, he's doing a very, very good job. At pick number 65 for the Cardinals, we have already gone after Marvin Harrison Jr., Jared Verse, and then also a Tavondre Sweat pick. So edge rusher, defensive interior, as well as wide receiver have been selected. Defensive back's probably the next route I would want to go. Not seeing anybody who I'm getting overly excited about except maybe DJ James. And, you could look into this linebacking core. I don't think it's a bad idea at this point, given how talented the guys are on the board. My next guy would probably be Curtis Jacobs or Barrett Carter. I know that, essentially there was a failed experiment there with the last linebacker from Clemson that y'all got. And it might be a little bit of PTSD to go after another one. So I'm actually going to go Curtis Jacobs here out of Penn State. Don't know why he's rated so poorly. He's been just consistently solid. I know he's been next to Abdul Carter, so he's not a linebacker one on his team, but he's done such a good job in the role that he is supposed to play. Very athletic, well worth selecting at this point. Pick number 66. I think this is the right move for Jonah Ellis. We already got a wide receiver, and all roads lead to Rome. And Jonah Ellis will be the next selection. The Eagles, we moved back, and at this point, I feel like going after a more sizable linebacker is going to be the proper thing to do. Unfortunately, I think Edgerrin Cooper is the only guy. He's not even. Oh, man, I forgot that he was 232. There is nobody in this class. I mean, Tommy Eichenberg's in that category, but you got Peyton Wilson, who just dealt with some injuries. Besides that, actually, Edifon Olufosho could be a good addition on the squad. He's not listed, but that's definitely a name who I'm considering. I do kind of want to go a wide receiver, though, for this team to get a wide receiver 4/3. Ricky Pearsall could be actually a really fun one. However, Jacob Cowing, I love Jacob Cowing. He's my number 32 player. I'm going to go for my number 30, Jermaine Burton. We're going to use Mario Williams as the placeholder. Jermaine Burton for the Eagles. He's a deep threat. He's 200 pounds. He's just, I don't know why he's not listed. He is a phenomenal player. And he had a 197-yard, 2-touchdown game this year. He's already shown that he can produce. And he runs routes arguably better than the majority of the receivers I've taken before. So very happy for that. Pick number 68 for the Giants, Jalen Polk. You know, that's one hell of an addition. Jalen Polk as well as Drake May. So you have the foundation down. I think now continuing to boost the O-line is a smart thing to do. Zach Zinter's a smart guard to go after. You could go Cedric Van Pran just to have the versatility of the interior. I'm going to go Zach Zinter here. One of the best run blocking offensive interiors. You could go Cooper Beebe as well. You can't go wrong with that pick. So we are going to boost the O-line with Zach Zinter. At pick number 69 for the Patriots, I think we went Tyler Guyton with our last pick. Double checking, we did. And at this point, you know, again, this team doesn't need that much except for, you know, I guess we could get another offensive tackle here, but Xavier Worthy's on the board. Let's test out what can happen with him. He's going to be a really good deep threat at the very minimum. The Rams, we have already addressed offensive tackle and I believe edge rusher. Did we get JT? We did. Look at that. So with JT as well as Joe Alt on the board, we're going to have only a couple of positions that I'd feel we need to fully address, and that's going to be defensive back. Again, looking at the guys available, I'm not over the moon about them. Looking at the safeties, though, we do have some really good choices here, and that includes Javon Bullard, who I think you can use as a safety or a slot corner. And for me, that versatility and the fact that he's so aggressive is really attractive. But I think I might want to opt actually for the linebackers because this linebacking core is not very good. You go Edgerrin Cooper. I'm going to go Barrett Carter here. At pick number 71 for the Green Bay Packers, we've already gone after a safety in Tyler Newman. We've already gone after a tackle. We have already gone after a defensive interior, I believe, too, with Dante Corleone. So now let's get a running back. The first running back to come off the board. It's just not been the year for running backs, unfortunately. I think Jonathan Brooks brings a lot of power to the game, and you know he's a 3-down back. Feels very similar to what y'all are looking for in an overall running back. At pick number 72 for the Buccaneers, I mean, we've already gone after edge rusher. We've already gone after quarterback. The edge rusher that we targeted for y'all was Princey Umanmielen, who's a beast. At this point, I do think linebacker could also be in the consideration. Peyton Wilson's here. The only reason why I haven't taken him is because of injuries in the past. Edgerrin Cooper has been very spectacular this year overall. Good in coverage, just a very solid linebacker overall. I'm going to go that route because, again, you have veterans in these systems that are going to need replacing, and these guys have a ton of potential. They need maybe 1 year of coaching from a veteran, and that's exactly what they're going to get. Pick number 73 for the Broncos. So we start off with Kool-Aid McKinstry. I don't think we had a second-round pick. At this point, you got Jaden Daniels on the board. I'm going to take Jaden Daniels. This team could potentially get something really special there with a guy who could honestly work really well under Russell Wilson. At pick number 74 for the Cardinals, again, Shadur and Caleb are returning. Don't want to hear it. Same thing with Quinn Ewers. So for pick number 74, I think running back's the right move. I think it is. You guys don't need it necessarily, but You got Marshawn Lloyd here and Bucky Irving. Both of them are creme de la creme products this year. Same thing with Trey Benson. You can't go wrong. For me, I want someone who can make people miss and just be a 3-down back. That's going to be Bucky Irving. At pick number 75. So we've already gone after a corner as well. We went Kamari out, corner as well as a quarterback. Now is the right time to go after an edge rusher, and somehow, some way, Chris Braswell is still here. Well worth that selection. Pick number 76. This would have been Chris Braswell if that pick was not. However, we are actually going to go after my number 27 player in the class, Xavier Thomas. And I am not going to be drafting Darius Robinson, so he's going to be my placeholder right there. But that is going to be my number 27 player, Xavier Thomas out of Clemson. Pick number 77. So we got defensive interior with Mason Smith. We have Keelan King. Now we could, of course, still go back to the safety route. To be fair, we got 2 slot corners here, which is the one position on the defensive backcourt that we do not need. Looking at other options here, man, I mean, you could look at developing some more offensive line talent, getting some extra receiver help in here too. You know, for me, one of the guys that you don't have stylistically is a Jacob Cowing, because I don't think that you could talk about Josh Downs being of a similar style, but I don't know. I feel like they both complement each other pretty damn well. Regardless, this is not an easy pick for me to go with, so I'm actually going to trade out of here, and I'm actually going to have a team trade up for Jacob Cowing because I do think he's by far the best wide receiver that is left on the board. And looking at a team that could use even more infusion into their receiving core, I am looking at the Jets, even though I'm pretty sure we got a Mecca Ibuka. So unfortunately, that slot role doesn't have to be filled up because JSN played in the slot last year. So you could, of course, kick a Mecca back out wide and have a super loaded receiving core there. And to be fair, the Jets don't need much. We're going to make that move. It's a short range trade out of conference as well. The Jets don't need that much, but this is going to be one of those smaller picks that ends up being a massive addition. So Jacob Cowing out of Arizona. No reason for him to be disrespected this much. Arizona's been putting up some crazy numbers, and Jacob Cowing is one of the reasons for that. Pick number 78 for the Raiders. So we have already gone after defensive back with Josh Newton as well as Jerzon Newton. If we have any other Newtons, we might be able to draft them here and just have big Newtons. I don't know. That was an awful joke. But regardless, I actually want to go after Trey Benson here to be the long-term answer for Josh Jacobs. He plays very similar stylistically, good vision. He can plant his foot in the ground and change directions very quickly. I don't think he'll be the exact same impact, but he still is an excellent, excellent running back. At pick number 79 for the Cardinals again, we have wide receiver taken. We haven't gone offensive line, I don't believe, for this team. We have linebacker. We have running back. We have not gone offensive line. And honestly, on the interior, Cooper Beebe's value is just ridiculously good. So Cooper Beebe will be the selection. Pick number 80, we're back with the Colts. Again, a team I don't really want to draft for, but I'm still down for it. I think Max Melton is well deserving of this, but we'll go DJ James. He's pretty damn light. I wonder if he got above 160. He did. He's up to 164. Not a big difference, but his ability as a corner is like on Emmanuel Forbes level, which obviously this year doesn't look like that great, but as long as you don't put him against a sizable wide receiver, you're going to be fine. And yeah, he's going to be corner 3 on the team. Well, if you don't count the slot corners. So he's going to be boundary corner 3. But this dude's going to sub in. Corners get hurt all the time, too. And his speed is unmatched. So I'm a big fan of DJ James. And it's well worth taking at this point. Pick number 81 for the Chargers. Looking at it, this is a pick that I actually really like for Javon Bullard to be just a versatile defensive back in this system. Looking at the targets we've gotten wide receiver and tight end. I think it's time to help out that secondary. Javon Bullard, slot/safety out of Georgia, to replace Alohi Gilman or kind of just go anywhere into that secondary. Pick number 82 for the Packers. I am considering going after a quarterback at this point. Riley Leonard's also considered returning because he's been absolute butt cheeks. Man, this quarterback class is not good. It is just deteriorated. Of course, I've done that to myself. I do know that, but Corner core, you could go Max Melton here and develop him. Jason Marshall's a fun one that I wouldn't kiss goodbye just yet. You could look at some extra linebacker help in here, some extra guard help. Like, man, I mean, wide receiver, I do know a lot of people are actually quite disappointed with the wide receiver play. And looking at the guys available, there are some fans of Brendan Rice out there. Looking at other players who I do like, man, this wide receiver class kind of thins out pretty quickly too. We've taken a billion of them, but Juice Wells could be a really fun option. He's elite after the catch. I think it's worth taking at this point. He's a bigger wide receiver, not necessarily fast, but solid hands, which again, kind of coveted for that receiving core, and really good after the catch. He's pretty much the better version of Malachi Corley. At pick number 83 for Seattle, we've already addressed the. Did we address the quarterback? No, we did not. Oh, we did. Joe Milton, as well as what was our other pick? Did we have another pick? I don't think we did. We've just taken Joe Milton at this point. So I already know the Seahawks fans are probably trying to kill me, but that is a-okay. We'll survive somehow. I do think that we could eventually invest more into the edge rushing room, and I love Jashin Davis. It's a guy that you won't need right away, but it's the 3rd round, and this guy is spectacular. For those of y'all who don't know, he has unbelievable size, one of my favorite sleeper products in the class, and I'm excited to start introducing him more into this. For the Lions, honestly, I do think linebackers should be a concern. Jack Campbell's not been very good this year, unfortunately. And, you could go after someone who's more of a blitzer like Tyrod Hopper. But for me, it's going to be Trotter or Eichenberg. And both of them are not having spectacular careers in college. Jeremiah Trotter's on his vengeance return, though. So we'll get the undersized Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Sorry, Eagles fans, but, it happens. Pick number 85 for the Cowboys. We've already gone linebacker. We've already gone center/left tackle for the team. We could just double up and just go center here at this point with Cedric Van Pran, but I'm going to pass on that for the time being. I do think a wide receiver is not out of the question either, but ultimately, I'm looking at the running backs, and Marshawn Lloyd fits perfectly with what they should try to replace Tony Pollard with. Having him combo with Deuce Vaughn would be awesome for the future, and I'm all here for it. Steelers, y'all keep calling for it, so I want to double check to make sure that my 2nd round pick was not a center, and it was not. We're going to go Cedric Van Pran for this Pittsburgh Steelers. So there you go. Enjoy it, my friends. Love people have been requesting Cedric Van Pran, so I finally caved. At pick number 87, I'm going to get a versatile defensive back here in Jedi Barron. Primarily a slot guy, but, I'm pretty sure he's slot. Yeah. So he's been primarily a slot. But the fact is he can pretty much play whether you want him in the slot or deep or in the box. For somebody at 5'11", 192, I love that versatility, and the one thing I really love about him most is that he's consistent. So big playmaker, good value at this point. At pick number 88 for the Bengals, we've gone after tight end. We haven't gone after tight end. We went after a tight end wide receiver, a hybrid, but we've also gone after an offensive tackle. This is the time where I'll actually go and pair him up with a teammate in Jaheim Bell. So you got Johnny Wilson and Jaheim Bell. Got somebody in the slot. It would be kind of funny if Jaheim Bell ends up being the slot wide receiver and Johnny ends up being a tight end, but that's a conversation for another day. Pick number 89, back with the Seahawks again. Just drafted Jashin Davis. Love Jashin, man. Really good product. So for me, I would potentially look at a left guard here in Donovan Jackson to develop, and it could save you some money down the line. That's the only position I would go. So we're actually going to go Donovan Jackson to develop. Again, this team needs absolutely nothing, and the value is just too good to pass on. It's a guy who I probably would have went after for the 49ers, who have already drafted a corner as well as a tackle. At this point, I am potentially going to go back to the guard route with Christian Mahogany because he's been back on an ascension route, which is good because he started out the year a little bit slower. So that's where we're going to go. Christian Mahogany, right guard out of Boston College. And pick number 91 for the Jaguars. We got wide receiver. We have safety. Now, I feel like we could try to target an edge rusher here. If we want to get someone who's a little bit thinner, Steve Valentin's a great choice. He's a really sneaky player. I think that not enough people are giving him respect. Gabriel Murphy, got to give him credit too. He's a very good player. Shamar Turner, I thought he was a redshirt sophomore. I don't know why. I thought he was a redshirt sophomore. But I think that's a dude who uppercutted an Ole Miss guy in the nuts. Not a big fan of that personally, but looking at the other interior players available, I do want to look at the tackles too. You got Karan here. We're gonna have a trade up. The Eagles are trading up. We're doing it. The Karan, I mean, it is a season-ending injury, so it makes sense why he would be here. But we'll send pick like 172. You can do that one negotiating on your own side, but this is going to be Karan Amazaje out of Yale. I'd be willing to take him in the second, but again, season-ending injury and the fact he needs so much development, this guy's going to be the longer-term play for Lane Johnson replacement. Pick number 92 for the Lions. We've already gotten wide receiver Brian Thomas. I'm now going to look at the corners, and I'm going to go Max Melton here. I picked number 93 for the Ravens. Already went defensive interior and corner. I personally don't really feel like this team needs much. You could go after someone who has a little bit more oomph to their game, like Jason McClellan or Audric Estime. I feel like Estime would be a good combination back here if you want to keep Keaton Mitchell for the long run. So we're going to go Audric Estime out of Notre Dame. Pick number 94 for the Chiefs. We've already went after wide receiver. I feel like a tight end's not out of the question at this point with someone like Ben Sinnott. Brevin Spanford, I really do like Brevin Spanford. He has issues with dropping left, right, and center, but this dude at 6'7", 270 moves differently than anybody else. I think it's worth taking a swing on him. So, all right, bet. So I'm going to be going after Brevin Spanford. It's worth taking the shot on. This guy's probably going to be running 4.5 at 6'7", 270. Just, he's an athletic freak, and he runs routes. He's very similar to Johnny Wilson, honestly. But the fact that he has drop issues as well as a really good route runner for his size. But unlike Johnny Wilson, this guy's not a good blocker. It's weird, but well worth developing. Pick number 95 for the Texans. I want to go after a linebacker here, and that's going to be Tommy Eichenberg. His value is too damn good, and for me, this team, again, doesn't need very much. So I think it's worth taking the swing. Pick number 96 and 97 for the Jaguars. Talked about it earlier. I probably want to go after offensive line here. I'm going to develop. This is one of the teams that do not need offensive tackles. I might trade back again. Sorry, Jags fans. But I'm seeing some really good left tackles on the board that deserve some developing. And I don't want the Niners to get them. I'm trading up with the New England Patriots. That's the crazy part. We're trading up with Bill is trading up. We're going to send a future 5 for this pick. So we are going to be moving up and selecting a left tackle in Javon Foster. I do love Javon. I think that he's a very talented guy. I have him. Where is he? Where's Javon? He's somewhere in here. My eyes are slipping me right now, but he's somewhere in this range. Great player. He's actually 51. There you go. So he slips just because he's old. He's a 6th-year senior. Hasn't really proven to be consistent enough, but someone who I would put my money on at this point, we could just go for the edge rusher pick. There's just so many good options here. I'm going to go Zion Tupuola-Fatui. He's been on a tear as well. He's a very talented guy. I'm going to be a big fan of him. I'm going to root for him.